Hello and welcome to the Millennial Traveler Podcast. My name is Amanda and you're tuning into the podcast for the Millennial Travel generation. So happy to have you here. Now let's dive into another episode. Hello and welcome to the first official episode of the Millennial Traveler Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about common fears of solo traveling. Now, I know I wasn't the only one that was scared out of my wits to embark on my first solo trip. I certainly can't be, and we all have that experience because unless you've been raised in a family of travelers, it's quite difficult to adjust to taking the step out of your comfort zone. So I'm really excited to dive right into this now. And let's start with the number one reason I believe, and I personally experience, why we have the fear to travel solo. So for me personally, it started with the lack of experience. Since I don't come from a family of travelers, as mentioned, I definitely did not have that kind of ingrained experience. So I feel like others, if you are from the background of people that do travel and you do go on your annual or routine vacations, even once every 5 years, it might be better than someone like me. So my first flight, I think, was quite late compared to most, or maybe you can relate to not taking your first flight until you were a teenager like me. And then I did another trip to Florida where I got on the plane by myself. I think that was the first time I did, and I was about 18 years old, but I didn't actually leave the country by myself till I was 20. So you're going to have to embark on this yourself and take baby steps. You might want to first learn how to fly solo. I definitely recommend that. And you should fly maybe within your own country to start off with, or even just one state over, for example, if you're going, well, it might not be necessary, but you might be able to go from let's say New York to Boston. There are flights between and it's not very far away. I believe just a couple of hours. So you can even start off with a short-term flight within your region of the country you're living in. Now, that's a prime example of what caused a lot of fears. So in addition to the lack of experience you might have of not being familiar with travel because you don't have this traveling background through your family or through friends growing up, you might also commonly have the well-known fear of getting lost. Yes, of course, it's bound to happen. We might get lost. It doesn't mean we'll never find our way back to our hotel or the airport. Nowadays, we're very fortunate. You guys, we have technology, so you really don't have to have a fear of loss based on that. Now, imagine in the days that there was no technology, that's more likely when people will have a major fear because if all you have is a paper map, you're more highly likely to get lost. But now we've got the internet, we've got loads of different apps, and I'll be going into another episode with all of my favorite navigation and map apps fairly soon. So, side note there. But we can't get lost because we have technology. So now this fear should be eliminated simply based on that. And because you have access to all these amazing navigation apps, and some of them are city or country focused, there's no need to worry because all you have to do is make sure when you're going somewhere, you've downloaded, for example, offline maps of any of the popular apps, which there's no need to mention because you already know Google Maps, for example. And also that you have a local map because many of these local cities internationally will have maps of their train system, their bus system. So if you've already prepared that in advance and you already know the route and how long it takes to get from point A to point B, you've got your offline maps available, this will definitely help you to prevent you from getting lost and from even having the fear that you should get lost. So if you do all this advanced preparation, you can alleviate a lot of those fears of getting lost. Now, another thing that is commonly known to people and they really truly fear is when you go visit a country that does not speak English, since as we know it, English has and will be the universal language. I mean, I'm thankful and I feel very blessed to be a native English speaker because I can't imagine how difficult it is to learn a second language. For me, learning my second language, Italian, has been so hard. But anyhow, I mean, when I was first going to a country that was not native English speaking, that was another terrifying experience for me. And I'm trying to recall now, but the first country I went to, Besides the UK, which I'm not going to count for this example because obviously they're English speaking, although that had its own set of fears, which I will get into as well. When I went to France, that was a moment for me, even though, of course, a lot of people do speak English, and specifically in Paris, since it's highly touristic. I really honestly didn't want to go anywhere without my local French friend. Like, if I did not have her by my side to speak the native language, I was kind of just embarrassed. I didn't really know much of the French language. And not only that, even if I tried or attempted it, my accent was so poor because that wasn't my second language of study. I didn't do French, I studied Italian. So Italy, I might have been more comfortable, but in France, I was definitely out of my element. And I always felt like I wanted my local friend right next to me to translate and to navigate and guide me. So when it came time for her to ask me to take the local train from her French suburb, which was, I guess, maybe less than 30 minutes from central Paris, into the main city, I just never could do it. I think she was kind of frustrated with me because I did not want to get on the train. I had, of course, one, the fear of getting lost, because at that time, I mistakenly did not have a SIM card. It was very early on my travels. I was still only about 22 years old. So at that time, I was not prepared with the SIM card, therefore couldn't access the internet on my phone, didn't have the option I just previously mentioned to you, which will save you a lot of worry and trouble, of course. If you just get a local SIM card, that's another pointer there. And make sure you have the internet access so you can access the maps. There you go. But I did not have any of the above, nor did I have any French language skills. So at that time, unfortunately, I lost some days on my trip because I was so scared of not knowing the language or the city, or obviously not being technologically connected on my phone since I was still using a UK phone at the time. So all of the above actually made me very, very scared to go into the city center. So long story short, I never actually made it into the city of Paris by myself. If one of her family members didn't accompany me, if she herself wasn't there or driving directly into the city, I just couldn't go. So I think looking back, it's a shame because I did lose out on many days of travel, and that didn't have to be the case. I could have actually enjoyed more of my trip if I was able to overcome those fears and to move on and navigate the trip on my own, with or without technology, and just having the confidence that I could connect to the locals, that I could gather the directions for myself. So this may be another example of what might happen to you, which is why, in addition, like I said, I recommend definitely getting a local SIM card so you're connected to the internet, so you can have your navigation. Case in point, that will solve a lot of these fears and problems that can occur when you're afraid of getting lost, when you don't know the local language. This is all things you can do to be very organized in your travels and alleviate many of these common fears of solo traveling. So for me, these are some of the experience I personally had with travel fears. Now, to go a bit deeper, when I go to countries that I didn't know the language, I always have to make sure that I've at least memorized some common phrases, and definitely please and thank you really will go far, and I find local people very much appreciate that. So if you're scared because you don't know the language they're speaking or you're not sure they're going to speak English, then I would say it's definitely worth taking a few online lessons via YouTube, for example, which is completely free, as we know. Learning some catchphrases in the language, learning at least where is such and such, let's say train station, bus station, airport, or if you want to go to a local restaurant, what's the best restaurant? These phrases will definitely help you. And of course, don't forget about where is the bathroom, very important, and you do not want to be without that phrase. So in this scenario, it helps if you study in advance some phrases of the language as mentioned, as well as kind of have a look at a map of the city center beforehand so you can mark out on your own map. And again, I suggest the paper map in this case, although I know you can use Google Maps and you can drop pins, whatever your preference, but I kind of like to sometimes see things visually on paper. And I can just map out and circle the destinations where I want to go to, so I know in advance, okay, it's going to take me X amount of time to reach this location. I need to get on this particular train line, and it's going to take me this amount of time to reach my destination. And what are some local markers that I can look at so I know where exactly I'm going and I never have to worry about getting lost, which is a very, very common fear once again. So there's just the fear of not knowing the language and having a language barrier, which you can slightly prevent by learning the phrases in advance, as I mentioned. There's a fear of getting lost, which you can totally eliminate that fear if you just simply map out in advance the landmarks, monuments, museums, restaurants you want to visit, either via Google Maps, dropping pins on those locations, or if you just prefer more visual, tangible on a map and just check that out, mark it out, pen to paper, and circle everywhere you want to go. This way you can mark it off. Know in advance what the public transportation system looks like. Some cities will rely primarily on the metro or subway station. Other cities, bus is more convenient, and even other cities, which are more my favorite style, you can literally walk almost everywhere. And I absolutely love those cities, like Venice, Italy, for example, Athens, Greece. Those are two of my favorite cities that are very, very walkable and highly recommended if you do have that fear of getting lost and you don't want to be bothered taking the public transport to the city center, other than to and from the airport to your accommodation. Then I definitely suggest cities like Venice and Athens, which I will definitely be talking about these destinations at a later date. And then that would help you to overcome a lot of these travel fears. So all in all, I feel like to overcome, definitely it takes preparation in terms of learning the language, mapping out your journey, being aware of the public transportation options you have in advance, definitely doing some research on the actual destination country before you go, because all of our websites, I know in America we have I believe it's travel.us.gov. I mean, I'm probably saying the wrong address, but everyone has a travel government website where you can research the destination in advance, find out, is this still a safe location? Like if you're going to a third world country, maybe you want to be careful with that and you want to know, okay, what is their current, economic, political situation and what is the level of safety? Because also helping to check that in advance will let us know and warn us ahead of time whether or not we should travel these destinations. You may not realize as well there might have been a natural disaster somewhere, because like lately, it's insane, but so many earthquakes are happening around the world. And if you don't check in advance and you just kind of book it, you have no idea what you're getting involved with. So definitely make sure you can be as prepared and preventative and aware as possible by doing the advanced research and taking these various steps to help overcome these various fears. And once you kind of foray into the solo traveling, into the international traveling, you're going to get more and more adjusted. So it will just take multiple experiences. Don't expect to feel entirely confident the first time around. I can tell you for a fact I didn't, as you know. If it took me like several months to use the local public transportation, the tube, in London, which is an English-speaking country, you can only imagine how difficult it was for me the first time going to countries that didn't speak English. So like for example in France, although yes, many French people know French, of course, I still felt the intimidation, like, oh, maybe I should know their language and I'm not exactly prepared. So again, it took a lot of adjusting, and that time either on my first visit, I was not able to do anything without my French friend. I just did not have the confidence. So if you do have a local friend you can travel with, that's another tip as well. And that will, of course, take care of you, take care of the language barrier, help you to adjust the public transport, the lifestyle, and just the overall community within the city and country you are visiting. But as I said, you just need to dive into it, take that first time experience. And I look forward to hearing from you if you have any more questions about this specific topic of travel fears and how to overcome them, or if it's a topic specifically about solo or international travel, or any burning questions you have. I would love to hear from you. So please head on over to my website or social media and drop me a message so we can discuss your travel questions next time around. Till next time, Millennial Travelers, get your travel on, and we'll talk again soon. Thank you for joining me in another episode of the Millennial Traveler Podcast. Oh yes. So to keep in touch, please do check out the show notes below with the social media links we'll have on there, Facebook, my website, as well as an email list you can also sign up for. So please do that. And If you do that, you will receive a free template that has a packing list as well as an itinerary sheet, which you can reuse repeatedly. Anyhow, thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it, and I will catch you the next time.